Lack of leadership as one of the biggest options.
But that was good, up until that bit.
Right. Coming up, a new study reveals low morale across creative and media agencies, citing lack of leadership as one of the biggest contributing factors.
And it's all change at the top of MEC.
Hello and welcome to IDCOM's Media Snack, episode 50.
Well done, we've made it to 50, half a century.
What's it like being 50?
Old and tired.
So it's episode 50. We're not going to dwell on that because it's not a significant milestone. But anyway, we made it. We've still got at least 6 or 7 viewers. So thanks for sticking with us. Today, really interesting. I mean, we're looking at a study which Campaign magazine did in the US amongst creative and media agency employees, which reveals some quite saddening results, actually, of very low levels of morale amongst staff, senior and junior.
That's right. And hot off the press, actually, news this week that Charles Courtier, the long-standing CEO of MEC, 14 years in that position, is leaving that role.
All coming up on today's Media Snack in just the time it takes to eat a sandwich. So first off today, as we mentioned, there's a really interesting survey conducted by Campaign in the US. They canvassed the perspective of about 300 agency employees, it's just in the US.
Yeah.
Majority were actually creative agencies, but a good cohort of media agency employees looking at morale amongst employees. And the findings are quite damning. This is the second year that they've done this. And the kind of headline from it was that morale has dropped, the levels of morale have dropped 36% versus last year. So quite a significant drop. And interestingly, they are most exaggerated, the low levels of morale, most exaggerated in kind of middle to senior management levels, and which they classify as, I think, earning between $100,000 and $250,000. So I mean, these are kind of the big wage earners.
That's right.
Are suffering from incredibly low morale in media agencies.
That's right. So about, I think, just under half of all those people that were interviewed said that they had deeply low levels of morale, and 2/3 were actually looking for another job.
Yeah.
And as you said, you know, it was a massive difference from the results that happened, bizarrely enough, during Mediapalooza. So kind of at a time when all of the agencies were frantically pitching and going through that kind of, you know, unprecedented year of work. Morale was better then than actually in this year, which doesn't bode well.
Yeah. And this thing about, I mean, particularly amongst those higher wage earners or the more senior people in agencies, said that the largest factor influencing their low morale was the lack of leadership, which we picked up on. So I think that's a really interesting point. It's not least reflected in the fact that there actually has been quite a lot of change of leadership within agencies. We published an opinion piece recently in the trade press suggesting, and we talked about it on Media Snack previously, about, you know, perhaps a changing of the guard at media agencies. Is that, you know, the fight set for the next 5 years is different to the fight from the last 5 years. And we're going into another busy year next year, so I can't see how this is going to drastically improve.
But I think, I mean, what I read into that in terms of kind of the leadership being the issue of low morale, I think it's actually down to the purpose of the people that are actually doing all of the hard work. You know, in absence of clear guidance and direction and perhaps some form of a vision from the leadership team, they just feel like they're on a treadmill. There's no, you know, real purpose of the work that they're doing. Perhaps the briefs they're working to aren't particularly inspiring, and that is bound to drive down morale. And what they're actually doing is pointing a finger at the leadership team in absence of anything else.
I think that would be, you know, I completely agree. But I think we're obviously making some assumption there, but I think it's completely fair, because working hard doesn't I've just had my lunch, sorry about that. Working hard itself doesn't create low morale.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not that necessarily agency people are overworked or that they're suffering a hangover from a busy pitch market necessarily. I think working hard can create good morale, but you've just got to have a vision and a purpose, which requires leadership. And so perhaps that is the vacuum, or that is the gap that actually creates low morale over time. And then we've seen, in recent weeks, Group M change of management, Dominic Proctor steps back, Kelly Clark comes in.
Laura Desmond leaves stock on MediaVest Group. So there are kind of significant changes. Group Publicists have gone through a massive restructuring, and earlier this week we hear that Charles Courtier, who'd been at MEC for 20 years, in the CEO role for 14 years, is stepping down early next year.
And we haven't seen change of media agency management for years. I mean, the people that are running media agencies now, up until about 2 months ago, have pretty much been in place for the last decade.
That's right.
There hasn't been the change, and we always wondered why that was. In such a fast-changing industry, with actually quite a lot of churn, why it wasn't the leadership. And you look at the heads of all the groups, the heads of Omnicom, WPP, Publicis. I mean, these guys, because they're almost all guys, not a great diversity advert, this industry, but they've been in place for a long time, for decades. So there hasn't been a change at the top. There hasn't perhaps been the disruption or the need to change. There's been, you could argue, a preference in the status quo somewhat. I think what we're seeing now, perhaps as we predicted, but we can't take that much credit for it, that there's going to be a seismic change, I think, in the agency model, in the demands placed by advertisers, in the leadership, therefore, that's required to steer these businesses and provide the ambition and the vision that can raise morale back and get these agencies operating again properly.
And I think the catalyst has been some advertisers, some brands, but I also think that the agencies are being really smart and that they are preparing themselves for better organised marketers and advertisers, and they need to get their own houses in order to address the challenges that are going to be coming from that side. So what we do know is that media has never been higher on the marketing agenda, on the corporate agenda in organisations. More and more brands are going to be bringing in smart media experts to provide governance within marketing organisations. We hope that will provide and inspire better quality work and briefing to the agencies. And I think at a time of massive disruption, massive transformation, they're getting themselves ready. Yeah.
And what are you seeing, I mean, from this, we talk a lot about this blueprint that marketers, designing now a blueprint for the agency that they want. You could argue perhaps that the Publicis restructure was somewhat triggered by significant loss of business in the US a year before. That a new agency model like Hearts and Science that we've talked about, was created in response to a brief from Procter & Gamble, P&G. There doesn't seem to be, within the media agency management, that the change is driven by a real clarity of vision of what media agencies need to be, but it's going to change as an impact of increased clarity of vision from the marketer side, increased clarity of the demand and the blueprint, and that's going to change agencies. And perhaps all this stuff, this change of leadership, new agencies springing up, these are just starting to be the indicators of the pressures now being applied by marketers.
I think you're right. I think that the greater the clarity that the marketeers have on the role media plays within their organisations, what they want their media agencies to do to fulfil those objectives, the better the brief, so the better the blueprint to deliver against those needs. It's rare now that a brand will buy an agency off the shelf. certainly those progressive thinking brands. What they go to market with is an idea, is an operating structure that reflects their own internal organisational structure, and that is able to fulfil their needs, not just now, but also over the next 3 years. And in such a massively changing media landscape, you know, that requires some foresight. So I think they are preparing themselves for that.
Yeah, and so we'll see. I mean, we've predicted a busy pitch market next year. I think there will be, you know, which includes a lot of perhaps renegotiations of scope and terms from the advertiser side. That's going to have a knock-on effect to reshape the media agency landscape, and you know, perhaps this changing of the guard at the senior levels of agencies is in somewhat preparation for that. I would add, I'm kind of sorry to see Charles go from you know, that position of influence and leadership. I'm sure he'll go on to great better things, and we look forward to kind of seeing him pop up again. But he's one of the true gentlemen of the industry, so we'll follow his next steps closely.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's it for episode 50. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.
Have a good weekend.
I did it.
Yeah, you did. Well done.
Good. Okay, did we cover everything? There's a lot. It's a big old gnarly topic, isn't it?